Well, something big is coming, guys, and world leaders are trying to hide it from you because it's not good for them. I'm hearing the same spin right now. I'm hearing it in Britain. I'm hearing it in Canada. I'm hearing it in the United States and more. All the data that I'm looking at, that we've been looking at, shows a massive recession is heading our way just after Christmas time. And the reason I say just after Christmas time is because we're talking about the seasonal employment. So you'll get that seasonal employment at the department stores, and they're gonna hire people temporarily when they're home from college. Most people out there still don't realize that we are being controlled by a system led by people who are not interested in preserving our constitutional rights, our personal freedom, or our self-reliance. They want us divided. They want us angry at each other. They want us financially dependent and constantly scared so they can rule us more easily. That's why our country is facing such a steep moral, economic, financial, and political decline. The truth is that no political party, government agency, or philanthropic corporation is actually making any real effort to avoid the total collapse of our democracy. We revisit an analysis published by the writer and longtime writer Trevor M.D. Creekmore, also a series of reasons why things are going terribly wrong in America. Here is why the United States is going to hell in a handbasket. Free trade with our arch-enemy, communist China. China is not our friend. It is rapidly overtaking the US economically and geopolitically, and it'll soon surpass the US militarily. But still, we continue to import and consume billions of dollars of products made in China each year. We have outsourced the production of several goods and the processing of raw materials to China, making us increasingly more dependent on a nation that is ideologically opposed to our morals and values. Meanwhile, the Chinese government continues to use those funds to strengthen its military and expand its technology. In fact, over the past 3 decades, instead of supporting our own military forces, the US has been exporting to China advanced technology that could be used against us in a potential confrontation. We used to be a nation that promoted morality and the belief in God, but today we are a country where the most perverse and ungodly acts are seen as normal. Depravity is not only accepted, but promoted and glorified. To make things worse, those who are brave enough to speak up against this growing immorality are accused of inciting hatred. Consequently, those who defend honorable values are being increasingly silenced while degenerates continue to infiltrate our society. The US is facing a moral collapse. Right now, everywhere we look, we and our children get instantly bombarded with obscene images in books, magazines, movies, music, and TV. This constant flow of promiscuity has corrupted the minds of the American people and continues to expose younger generations to perversion. People are no longer believing in God, the Bible, and Christian values. Harris poll conducted with thousands of American adults found that more and more Americans describe themselves as not very religious, and according to a Daily Mail report, today more people believe in the theory of evolution than in the Word of God. For decades, we've been abandoning the religious principles that this nation was built on. Those beliefs have held us together and made us strong. But now it appears that we're banning God from our country and our lives. We are not as free as we think. After 9/11, our personal freedom, privacy, and constitutional rights have been on a rapid decline. Today, we're constantly surveilled and recorded. We can even be detained and held indefinitely without a trial or due process. MD Creekmore noted that the so-called war on terror has been used as an excuse to trample on individual constitutional rights and to increase the power of the government and the ultra-wealthy that control the country from behind the curtains. Scare the population enough, and they will willingly turn over their freedom and rights for a promised margin of safety. We actually do not have any political choice. Most people like to think they have a choice when they enter the voting booth, but the truth is that they don't. There's very little difference between Republicans and Democrats, and neither party represents our population or makes any effort to defend our individual rights or the Constitution. What we have is a one-party system that is disguised as a two-party system. to give voters the false impression that they do have a choice and that there's hope for change. In reality, both parties are controlled by the same establishment that really runs the nation behind the scenes. Our political system is rigged. As former governor of Minnesota, Jesse Ventura once said, when you spend millions of dollars to get elected to a position that pays $100,000 a year, we know those figures don't add up. They are all a bunch of crooks. Money, ego, and a hunger for power has corrupted the American political system. The school system is an indoctrination system. According to Creekmore's analysis, the government-ran school systems are nothing more than indoctrination centers for our children, a place where they can be molded to the liking of the government by propaganda. The government's indoctrination trains children to be dumbed-down adults that cannot think for themselves, that do not have personal beliefs, personal thoughts, or personal opinions, and are forced to do what they are told by the authorities through the government-controlled mainstream media. The vast majority of news we watch, read, or listen to every day comes from government and corporate-controlled media outlets. Most broadcasts we see on TV on a daily basis are only reporting the talking points that have been provided for them by government agencies and corporations. Major mainstream news organizations have already admitted doing that. Those who are actually in positions of power push their agenda and views to influence us in our decision-making and to make us believe that they're considering what's best for us. This is called mass media brainwashing, and it's all around us. They're even trying to take control over the internet. According to the NSA, plans are being introduced to create a Chinese-style control program named the National Strategy for Trusted Identities in Cyberspace that aim to force every internet user to give up their privacy, be labeled and tracked even further than they already are. Political correctness has become a smoke screen. Social issues are being constantly inflamed by operatives of the federal government to keep our population tense, divided, and on edge. The mainstream media uses these problems to keep everyone occupied, pointing fingers and fighting with each other. And that way we don't see what's really going on in our country, our economy, and our freedom. They want to keep us divided so they can better lie to and control us. Less self-reliance and more government dependence. Another important aspect to be considered is that our society used to be filled with individuals that practice self-reliance and personal responsibility, but times have surely changed. Today, millions of people are extremely dependent on the system, and government programs not only exclude those who are self-reliant, but frequently trap individuals and families into long-term dependence, leaving them incapable of escaping their condition for generations to come. Foreign companies are taking over our business and property sector. Several foreign corporations have been buying up thousands of U.S. businesses and purchasing land in the United States. For instance, China bought 90% ownership of a IG airplane leasing unit International Lease Finance Corporation for $5.28 billion. According to a CNBC report, the Chinese are on a buying spree, sweeping up every energy and natural resource in the United States that they can get their hands on. And they even buying up and taking control of the U.S. food supply. China's largest acquisition to date of a U.S. company, Smithfield Foods, is raising interest among market watchers who question China's interest in taking possession of one of America's largest food producers. Today, anyone who disagrees with government policies can be considered someone who has a psychiatric disorder. Psychiatrists now can legally say that nonconformity is a mental illness. This is being done for a couple of reasons, which include the government's will to take away our rights or send us to prison indiscriminately, and also send a message to others that they should keep their heads down and remain compliant. Otherwise, they'll face the consequences themselves. Our national debt is overwhelmingly large. The current national debt now stands at $30 trillion. It won't take too long before this huge debt load crashes the economy. Major countries are already starting to lose confidence in the US dollar and dumping treasury-backed securities by the millions. Since 1913, our currency has continually lost value, and our buying power has steadily shrunk. When the rest of the world realizes the proportions of the mess we've got ourselves into, they'll stop lending to us, and everything will fall apart in our nation. Of course, this won't happen overnight. It's been happening for years, and as we are getting closer to the end, this whole process will be put into overdrive. We're living through exceedingly dark times, and our freedom is under threat. We must share the word and start taking action before it's too late.